And as we've been covering, Utah Governor Spencer Cox says a suspect 22-year-old Tyler Robinson is in custody in connection with the fatal shooting of Charlie Kirk. And joining me now to discuss this is our panel with Gerard Felitti and Jeremy Rosenthal. Gerard is a senior counsel at the Lawfare Project and also an attorney specializing in counterterrorism. And Jeremy is a trial attorney and founding partner of Rosenthal, Calabas, and Tarrant. Gerard, walk us through the legal procedure now that authorities believe they have the right suspect.
Well, there will be an indictment, there will be an arraignment, there will be charges that are made public, many things that will not be made public, and we will go down the process of a criminal trial. Utah is a death penalty state. We can fully expect that the federal government, which is the one pursuing the charges, will have that on the table. And it is now just going to be very interesting to see what is actually said and what is revealed and how soon we get more information. Understood.
And now, Jeremy, we heard the governor describe messages between a contact and Robinson about specifics related to the shooting involving weaponry and attire and so forth. How will that evidence likely be used to build a case?
Well, with a situation like this, your best defense is usually going to be, it wasn't me. And the more things that you say that are incriminatory, the more things that you reveal to other people that are not made public, the harder that defense really is. When you're defending a murder charge, when you're defending some sort of capital charge, there's several different angles that you can try to take to defend it. But that is going to be very difficult. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot more forensics that come out that it sounds like they're going to do nothing but point more to Mr. Robinson here. So those are going to be the things that sort of tighten the noose, if you will, around the accused, from a legal standpoint, so to speak, only because, again, there's only so many different ways that you can try to defend it. You can try to defend cases with mental health. We've seen in Luigi Mangione's case, there may be some overtones there. We don't know who this person is, but it's looking more and more apparent that it wasn't me is probably not going to work.
Understood. And Jeremy, let's stay with you for a moment. To bring our viewers up to speed who may be joining us, Governor Cox gave an account of the events leading up to Robinson's arrest. And he said that a family member contacted a family friend who then contacted the Washington County Sheriff's Office saying that Robinson had either allegedly confessed or somehow indicated that Robinson is allegedly the shooter. How are they going to take that into account, and what weight does that carry?
Potentially a lot. There are confessions and then there are confessions, right? There are things that an accused will say that we've heard here, that he knows facts and details perhaps about the rifle that really only law enforcement knows that the public doesn't know. Those are just as good as any type of confessions. Other times in the criminal world, when we hear somebody has confessed, it may not be quite as great as advertised. It may be a vague reference to it. It may be something like, well, I did something terrible. So we'll have to see just how tight that is. But again, the resources that have gone into this investigation have to be astronomical. And you would be very surprised if there's not just one or two, but 10 things or 15 things that really point to this individual. If you're defending him, that's kind of what you're looking for.
Understood. Now, Gerard, turning to you, Governor Cox said the bullet casings were inscribed by the shooter. Could that be used in determining a motive?
Well, it can be. These are essentially statements that the accused made in writing on these bullets, so they certainly go to a state of mind, taking into consideration as well not just what was written on the bullet, but apparently, as is being reported, he also shared information on a Discord channel and also had communications with family members about Charlie Kirk. So all of these collectively will go towards his state of mind, his intent, the planning that went into this to establish why he did it, which at the end of the day is not really necessary if there is strong forensic evidence, as there seems to be in this case, that he is the shooter.
And why is the focus on a motive in these type of cases? As you mentioned, it's not necessary, but possibly it can further things along in the effort to obtain justice.
Well, here the issue is that we're looking at a very high-profile assassination that's very much in the public eye and the public interest. We all want to know. We all want to know what's driving this political violence. We all want to know what we can do to prevent acts like this in the future. So the motive is not critical from the legal perspective, but from the public interest perspective, we need to know what's going on in our country. So this is why there is so much speculation and why there is so much interest into who is this person? What's his background? Was he radicalized? Why did he do this? And what lessons can we learn to keep Americans safe?
Understood, Gerard. Yes, that is very important to keep aware of. Now, Jeremy, please comment on the strength of the evidence presented thus far. We've been talking about this, and any pieces that still need to be obtained.
Well, this is going to be unraveled for quite a time, and there's going to be investigation that's sort of going forward. In the year 2025, it's a miracle in many ways that this man was free for 24 hours after the fact. It is very, very difficult to get away with something like this because of all the footage, because of all the surveillance, because of all the cell phones, because the government has what are called geofence warrants, which they may or may not have used, because they have the capacity to comb the neighborhoods. So the evidence that we have seen is the tip of the iceberg that point to this individual. The confessions are probably in many ways sort of icing on the cake. And they're going to be there's going to be a lot more evidence that I think we're going to see after the fact, because now they're going to go and search a lot of his social media. They're going to go and search a lot of his electronic devices, cell phones, computers, to see a lot of different things. And let's be clear about this. You don't wake up one morning, buy a rifle like this, and park yourself on the top of that building and carry this out. This was very meticulously planned. And Mr. Robinson seems, at least you'd have to argue or say that there was a little bit of skill involved with what he was trying to accomplish. So this was very premeditated. And I think you're going to see a lot more evidence that points to a lot more elaborate of a plot than we're seeing. We're seeing just a fraction of the evidence at this moment.
Jeremy, I follow what you're saying. Now, Gerard, are there unique components to this case, considering that it involves the murder of a high-profile public figure? Looking ahead, I mean, we've seen Governor Cox call this a political assassination. Could this involve possible terrorism charges, and/or will ideological leanings be considered as part of the prosecution?
I think that is something that will absolutely be considered, and that is one way that motive does come into play. If we're looking at something that was ideologically motivated, and you can call this an act of domestic terrorism, that's certainly more meaningful when you make those charges, because you're sending a deterrent message by prosecuting this sort of political violence as terrorism, as domestic terrorism. So that is certainly something that is on the option. And also, there's a lot to be said for who knew or who was aware of this individual's leanings before. Not that necessarily there was a conspiracy, but was there any opportunity to stop or prevent this tragedy? So there will be a lot of investigating to do on what exactly this individual did beforehand, how he planned it, and who he talked to.
So, Gerard, drawing on your expertise, what is the difference between bringing forth, for example, hate crime charges or terrorism charges, in addition to what may be murder charges that are eventually brought forth?
Realistically, you're not going to see hate crime charges because Kirk was not part of a protected group. It's not the type of murder where you are looking at religion, for example. Political leanings tend not to be, in most states, considered for bias enhancement, for hate crime enhancement. But at the end of the day, why these charges matter is because of the message it sends to society. He's not going to be doing more time in prison than life without parole or the death penalty, depending on what charge is brought. It's all the same in terms of punishment. But it is a deterrent message. We're sending the message to society that some crimes are so heinous that we want to treat them differently, whether it's terrorism or a hate crime. Okay,
understood. Gerard, thank you. Now, Jeremy, walk us through the next steps. I mean, what are you going to be looking for in terms of the timing of when all these major events, arraignments, and so forth take place?
Under Utah law, he is entitled to a hearing on bail. He will probably be denied bail. In Utah, you are eligible for the death penalty. And the way the death penalty works in pretty much every state is it is murder plus some other what we would call an aggravating factor. That could be another underlying felony. That could be the age of the victim. In this instance, I think under Utah law, the fact that he endangered so many other lives would almost certainly trigger the death penalty. So not every murder triggers that. But what he does is he's got a right to a bond hearing. If the evidence against him, if the probable cause against him is overwhelming, the judge can deny bond. The fact that he was at large for as long as he was, and the fact that this appears to be as premeditated as it was, highly indicate that it would be very shocking if he were able to have a bond. Once the feds start filing charges, and they almost certainly will, I think you're going to see that they're going to kind of treat this legally anyway, sort of like Luigi Mangione's case, which is to kind of talk about the bias involved. Again, he's not being charged because he didn't like Charlie Kirk. I think the feds are going to look at this. You were trying to incite some kind of mass movement with this. Brian Thompson being the CEO of United Healthcare, there was an anti-insurance company motive there, and that really drew the feds into the case to some degree. So I think you're going to see it somewhat like that. Immediately, I think you're going to see that he's not going to get bond. I'm looking for the media. This is where the media sort of makes their money. You're going to hear a lot of gumshoe work, a lot of his friends, a lot of his colleagues, a lot of his social media, I think, are going to kind of come out. And then law enforcement are going to sort of get into a lot of his devices. And that's the evidence that I think we're going to sort of see next. And I think that's where this goes, at least in the next several weeks.
Well, we appreciate having you both on. Now, Gerard Felitti and Jeremy Rosenthal, thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.